There's a quiet sense of fatigue happening with men. From the outside, they're productive, functioning, and responsible. And yet something feels off on the inside. For men over 35, they're struggling, not because they're incapable, but because they're neglected. Not from others, but from themselves. This chronic depletion comes from a lack of permission. They're willing to show up for everyone else, but when it comes to their own inner world and needs, they've learned to endure instead of care. For most men, self-care sounds small, soft, optional, or secondary. But real self-care is not indulgence. It's discipline turned inward, and it creates the foundation of a man who can truly serve. Today, I want to explore a deeper understanding of self-care, one that steadily rebuilds a man's self-esteem and connects him to meaningful service beyond himself. Because deep self-care for men is not about escaping life, it's about creating a life you don't want to escape from. And that kind of life becomes a gift to everyone around him. So if you're wondering if you need to strengthen this care, here are a few signs. You don't need to see yourself in every example. Just one can be enough for a meaningful takeaway. You move through your days efficiently, but without much enjoyment. Things get done, responsibilities are handled, but without much fulfillment or connection along the way. You rarely feel rested, even after sleep or time off. Your body slows down, but your mind keeps moving, bracing for the next demand. You've become skilled at pushing through discomfort. So much so that you can no longer tell the signals that your body actually needs care. You notice that distraction has become easier than stillness. It's not that your life is unbearable, it's just the stillness alone is unfamiliar. And in quiet moments, questions come up that don't easily go away. What am I doing all of this for? Is this push through sustainable? Have I built a life that I actually feel connected with? These questions aren't a sign of weakness. They're signs of awareness trying to get your attention to reconnect with care. The hidden gem here is that self-care is deeper than habits and routines. For a lot of men, self-care gets reduced to optimization. Better sleep, better workouts, better productivity systems. Those things matter, but they're only the starting point. At the deepest level, self-care is about the quality of the relationship with yourself. When that relationship is neglected, even success feels strangely hollow. Men who lack self-care often live in contradiction. They expect a lot of themselves, but offer themselves very little. They demand resilience, but rarely allow vulnerability. And they pride themselves on responsibility, yet quietly resent the weight of it. When self-care begins to shift, something changes internally. You become less interested in proving yourself and more curious about what's going on inside. So the foundation of sustainable self-care is healthy self-esteem. This is often misunderstood as confidence or self-belief, but at its core, it's simpler and more grounded than that. It's the sense that you can rely on yourself. It's the experience of knowing that when something inside you says this matters, you're willing to listen. The erosion of self-esteem doesn't happen through dramatic failure. It happens through small, repeated moments of self-betrayal. Ignoring exhaustion, dismissing emotional needs, staying in situations that keep you small, and making promises to yourself that you don't keep. Over time, this creates an internal rupture. You function, but you no longer fully trust yourself. And deep care begins with repairing that trust. Not through grand gestures, but through realistic commitments. Choosing honesty over performance, consistency over intensity, and alignment over approval. And over time, a different relationship with yourself begins to form, and with it, a different kind of strength. So the other pillar of deep self-care is service. And this is often a dimension that gets easily overlooked. If your life revolves entirely around your own self-healing and comfort, it can become strangely isolating. Men are not designed to exist only in self-reference. We are shaped by contribution. When a man feels his life has no meaningful impact beyond himself, something inside contracts. He becomes overly focused on his struggles and dissatisfaction. But when he begins to offer something from organic contribution within, whether it be his skills, his presence, or attention, everything changes. Service doesn't erase pain, but it contextualizes it. It reminds you that you're connected to something bigger than yourself. And this is not about overgiving or losing yourself in others. It's about discovering that part of your well-being is inherently connected to being of service and contribution. So in this sense, service is not the opposite of self-care. It's actually one of its deepest expressions. Self-esteem without service can easily become self-absorption. Service without self-esteem easily lead to neglect. But when the two are integrated, something balanced and grounded comes forward. You begin to care for yourself not because you're withdrawing from life to do it, but because you want to participate more fully. And you contribute not because you're trying to increase your self-worth, but because you're already connected to it. And this integration changes the way you make decisions. You become less reactive or less driven by guilt or pressure. And you no longer feel pulled apart by doing something for others versus doing something for yourself. Instead, the two start to inform each other. And this is when self-care stops feeling like a technique and instead feels like a way of being. Most men don't consciously decide to neglect themselves. They simply adapt. They learn to tolerate tension, to overlook internal needs, and to accept emotional distance as the price of responsibility. But this adaptation is not the same as alignment. If you're watching this, something probably in you already gets this. Not in a dramatic way, but in a subtle knowing. You don't need to transform your life overnight. You only need to begin responding differently to what you're already feeling. So consider these questions. Where in my life have I confused pushing through with strength? What would it mean to treat my inner world not as an obstacle, but as a guide? And how would my life change if showing up for others and caring for myself were no longer at odds? This kind of self-care comes through small shifts in attention, honesty, and your choices. And over time, these shifts reshape not just how you feel, but who you're becoming. Because when a man learns how to care for himself in this way, he doesn't just feel better, he feels more present for life. And that presence alone is a gift for everyone around him. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time.